WGPR Detroit HD2.
You're watching WHPS, Highland Park, Detroit. The views and opinions expressed on the following show are not necessarily the views and opinions of WHPS, its affiliates, management, or sponsors.
My name is Watson.
And my name is Mariah.
We're 12 years old.
And we're representing Old Redford Academy Middle School.
And we're here to talk about drugs.
Drugs are very dangerous and unhealthy.
And they can also ruin a relationship with your loved ones. Go talk to a family member, a friend, even a teacher. Or you can go to a therapist, or if you need any extra help, you can go online and find all of those.
Hashtag not worth it.
And good afternoon and welcome to Expose Under the Sun, sponsored by the Detroit Native Sun newspaper. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and we are live today in the awesome cities of Detroit, Michigan and Highland Park, Michigan, under the auspices of the Honorable Mayors Hubert Yap in Highland Park, and under the auspices of the Honorable Mayor Mike Duggan in Detroit. Again, our show is live, and our calling numbers are area code 313-868-0342, 313-868-0351, and 313-868-4336. Our website is www.tv33whpr.com. And if you are able to go and call in, please do. We've got a very, very good topic that we're going to be talking about with my special guest, Pastor Velma Jean Overman. And as everybody knows, this is Black History Month. And a lot of people, kind of have the question, and they brought it up to me, and I'm sure Pastor Overman, and they've said, why do they pick the shortest month in the year to have Black History Month? And that amazes me as well, too, because Black history should be taught 24/7, 365 or 66, depending on if it's a leap year. But it should be taught every day, and if possible, every hour of the day. There is so much history that a lot of people can have. And as I always say to people, knowledge should be shared, not hoarded. You shouldn't keep knowledge. You should share it with everybody that you can. Give freely, because we have such a vast amount of history and historical presence throughout, not just in America, but throughout the world. And we hope that everybody will get a chance to learn something and learn something new, because you never know. Something that somebody may bring up. I was doing some research for my Measure for Man page, and I've been posting something every day about Black history. And one of the things that I had posted was about the Hidden Valley and the dressings that Hidden Valley produces. And I did not know that ranch dressing was a condiment that was created by a cowboy in Nebraska. And he had a farm and a ranch that he called Hidden Valley. And he produced ranch dressing, obvious with the name ranch, for his ranch that he had. And what he did was that Not only did he produce ranch dressing, but various other dressings. And in 1972, he sold it to the Clorox Bleach Company. But the thing is that there's so many. And then one other story that I tell a lot of people is the story about hush puppies. And a lot of people don't know that the hush puppy that they may go and have when they have fish and chips, hush puppy was something that is a cornmeal product that slaves used to produce. And when the slave owners would go and sick the dogs on them when they would try and gain their freedom, what they would do is that they would take the cornmeal product and they would sprinkle pieces of it on the ground. And when they sprinkled the pieces on the ground and the dogs saw the concoction and they went and ate it, the slaves would then say, "Hush puppy," because the dogs would stop barking and they would start to eating the meal. And in some cases too, some of the slaves would then go and put a poison in the concoction, so that then if the dogs were going to, once they ate the concoction, they may go and continue to chase after them. So in some cases, they may have gone and poisoned the product, and then when the dog was convulsing or vomiting, then they would steady sell the dog hush puppy. And then they would attempt to gain their freedom away from their vicious slave masters that were beating and whipping them, and subjecting them to all kind of atrocities. But today, what we're going to do, we're going to talk about as some people call it, a massacre. And this was something that took place back in 1932. And a lot of people look at Ford Motor Company as one of the largest automotive companies in America as well as in the world. And they produce a lot of trucks, the F-150, a lot of different vehicles. Back in the day, people were really driving the Mustangs back in the day. And now you see a lot of people are driving the F-150 and the F-450, the pickup trucks. But there was a time back then during the Great Depression, back in 1929, when there were things that were going on where the production of the vehicles that Ford Motor Company manufactured went down from 5.3 million in 1929 to 1.3 million in 1932. And during this time was considered to be the Great Depression. And a lot of people were not buying products because they were trying to save their money because they didn't know what was going to happen. So Ford Motor Company had to wind up laying off 2/3, just imagine, 2/3 of its employees. And many of those employees wound up starving. And this kind of leads into the topic of our conversation today with Pastor Velma Jean Overman of Christ Refuge Church of God in Inkster, Michigan. And she also has the Operation Refuge food pantry in Inkster as well. Pastor Overman, thank you for coming on the show today.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation. I'm excited to be here and be a part of what we're going to talk about today as we go over our history, and particularly my family's history with the Ford Motor Company. So thank you for the invite, Mr. Griffin.
Okay. And now talk a little bit about what I kind of set the premise about what happened. What did happen? Because there were people that were gathered in Detroit to march down Michigan Avenue, heading towards the Miller Road and to the Rouge plant. I've set the stage, but tell us what happened at that point.
Well, you kind of already had the conversation about what was taking place during the late 20s and the very early 30s as far as the Depression in the United States, and the fact that families were literally starving at this time. And Ford Motor Company, as you had said earlier, was like the place that everybody moved to make money, to get an opportunity at the American dream. And things changed, of course. The Depression and war and things happened that changed things. But on March the 7th in 1932, according to some of the things I researched, it was one of the coldest days in history. And the people still came together to march to make sure that Henry Ford understood the need that they had, that they needed to have a fair wage, they needed to have things for their families. And what is interesting as we discuss Black history is that they wanted to include us, the African Americans, as we were called in the 30s, the Negroes, into the organization of Fords. Let's really be fair across the board to people. So they prepared themselves to march. And I researched and got a lot of information from a study they were doing at the University of Michigan that said that during this 50-minute march, close to 6,000 people had signs saying, "Give us work. We want bread, not crumbs." So even today, as we talk about the ballot box, we talk about from the bread box to the ballot box to the bread box, because how you vote, how you prepare yourselves as far as those that represent you, has a lot to do with what will be on your family's table and what your standard of living will be like. So just to really visualize that, people marching, the coldest day of the year, Depression, people actually starving to death because there was no social services then. So just kind of picture that. And most of us are familiar with Miller Road and Michigan Ave and marching from Detroit to the Rouge Complex, which at that time, it was large enough where people thought of it as its own city, right? When they thought about the Ford Rouge Complex, they thought about a city within the city. So kind of setting that scene, people marching, women, men, Black, white.
I heard also with children, too. Some
Yeah,
of the
children, yes,
were also
headed
marching.
on the coldest day of the year to find, at this time, there's word that says that the Ford security team, along with the Dearborn police, were there waiting for them. They had a peaceful march planned, but they didn't want it to happen at Rouge. So do you want me to go further, or
Please,
you want to?
please.
Okay, so when I really think about this, and I wanted to really talk about this, and thank you for the invite, because my family has so much history in this conversation. My granddad used to talk about how horrible the security system really was at Ford Motor Company, including salaried supervisors and those that would literally take you out back and do physical harm to you at work. So
Wait a minute, you said they would actually take people out behind the plant
absolutely.
and do.
This is my family's, my grandfather and my father, and I'm a Ford retiree. So we're talking 4 generations. My son is there. So we're all between Rouge and Wayne Assembly and the Michigan truck. So I know at our plant, we had things happening in the 70s, right? I had to deal with racism and sexism and all kind of things at Ford's. But I had a great life. I don't want to say that it wasn't a great place to work, but as we deal with racism today, we have dealt with it since the inception of our union, and that's what we're going to talk about a little later, what was able to come out of this massacre, because it really was called a Ford massacre. The coldest day of the year, men, women, Black, white, boys, girls walking, and cold water sprayed on them. That's how they started it off. Then they threw tear bombs at them.
So we're talking about the coldest day of the year.
Yes.
Plus,
In
cold
Michigan.
water was actually
In
being
Michigan.
sprayed on them.
Yes.
As
yes.
well.
To deter them from their right to come together and protest, right? You've always had that right in this country, to say this isn't fair and I want more. That was what they wanted. But of course they did the spin and said they were communists, right? They made them look as though they were the bad guys, as you read the newspaper articles that were written during that time. And not only that, and the closer they got, they started to shoot at them. Who ever heard of that? You were shot at. And the article that I read from U of M, and I actually had his name, Paul Dross did the research. was saying that it was the Dearborn police that shot the people, along with Ford Security. And
So Dearborn Police and then the security from Ford Motor Company under the auspices of,
Harry, yes, they said he was riding like he was on a horse in a car shooting at people. During a peaceful march, this happened. So when you think about depression and the actual psyche and how people must have been feeling, not knowing how you're going to eat, and people actually dying from not eating, and knowing that the company you're working for could give you a decent wage, could help, right? Like what happened with us during the pandemic, every kind of resource was poured into us. Henry Ford could have done that. The funding was there, but you have your people being laid off, turned to the streets with no resources, and allowed to die. And we know the very vulnerable African American families were among the first to go, among the first to be affected with because of our limited resources, because of the quality of life that we've always had here, that we would be the first on the list to be hungry, to our children to starve, and all the health disparities to happen. So it's interesting when you look back at our history in Wayne County and the resources that are in this county, but how people live here. And to know that in 1932 you had this conversation, and in 2022 we can have the same conversation, because as they fight for $15, that's like fighting for $1.75, because it's not a livable wage. And at the same time, every single person that has someone employed could pay them better.
and see, that's the sad part about it too, Pastor Overman, is that when you look at a living wage,
That's right.
in some cases, it's not just one wage, but it could be multiple wages to have a living wage, to be able to go and pay your bills, keep a roof over your head, keep food on the table for yourself, your spouse, for your children.
That's right.
And then also some of the other things that people use, some of their wages for, to purchase a vehicle, to go and be able to go in and pay for school supplies for the children, and other, amenities. But let's go back to the massacre. So they got there to the plant, and the water was sprayed on them.
On the coldest day,
on the coldest
of the
day of the year.
Yes.
And then also they were being shot upon.
Yes.
What happened after that?
4 men died immediately, right? And people were arrested. And the organizers they looked at, as people tend to do here in the U.S., as socialists, right? As communists, as criminals, as you try to organize and bring people together to stand for their own power that you have, the synergy you get gander when it's us together and not separated. So of course they call them communists. So 4 people died. But the reason we're having this discussion around black history is not just the unionizing of people, but the one black man that died.
So there were a total of 5 people that got killed, and one
4
of those
immediately,
5
one died later.
was a black man.
Yes, Curtis Williams, he died later that August. The 4 were buried together at the cemetery in Rouge. And
That's Woodmere, correct?
yes.
Okay.
And he died. They didn't allow him to be with them because there was a segregated cemetery.
So they only wanted a certain race to be buried at this cemetery.
Yes.
And because of the fact that he was
African
African American,
or Negro in 1932.
or colored, I think that's how the
Colored.
phrases were.
Yeah.
Colored, Negro. But because he was of color, a person of color, that what they did was that they had to cremate him
Yes.
and then put his ashes in a plane, and then they sprinkled the ashes upon the cemetery because they couldn't actually inter him into the ground. So they had to sprinkle his ashes upon the cemetery.
Yes. Yes.
And then in the 60s, they were actually able to go and get the permission to be able to put a grave site or put a headstone
on
out there
all of them.
for
Yes.
those individuals
Yes.
that were killed, including the black man,
Yes.
Mr. Williams, that
Yes.
was also killed as well.
And the funeral for the four had over 60,000 people marching to the funeral, which was unheard of during this time. So it's not just a group of renegades at a Ford plant. These are people that may change the trajectory for all of our lives on the planet, right? Once you unionize, you had to give me health care. You had to come to terms that you don't get to keep all the money that I'm making for you, which is something that we all should applaud. I know it's horrible what happened, but out of the ashes came strength for the people here in this country. So especially those that are not only in the auto workers, but because it passed on to ACLIO, other organizations that you're with, CAW. I mean, it happened with nurses. It's happening today with Starbucks. So the power of what took place in 1932, 90 years ago, has continued to empower us with a standard of living, healthcare, education, because out of that came college opportunities for people that worked at Ford Motor Company. And to say that Henry Ford was thinking about us is a long stretch. He was thinking about his pocket, and out of that came some economic empowerment for people of color, for Caucasians, for women, for everyone. So when I think about this and what really happened and what Walter Reuther was able to do and other organizations, a lot of times it seems as though we've been traumatized and it can't be changed, but we have to look at what grows out of it.
So now there's going to be a event that pretty much is going to speak about what happened back in 1932. This is what, the 90th anniversary
Yes.
of that event, March the 7th, correct?
Yes.
So what is planned for that day?
Well, I want to do this correct so that my president of the Western Wayne County NAACP, Mrs. Gina Stewart, NAACP,
Okay.
because we have our instructions now for the advancement, right? So we want to say it correctly. But they're going to be
Now,
marching.
you heard this today. They don't say NCAA.
Right.
P. They say NAACP, or the National Advancement
Of color.
for the national. Say what that means now. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People.
Correct.
Okay, so NAACP.
CP, right.
Okay.
You have to enunciate each A.
Right.
But they're going to have a march. And last year, or I think it was pre-COVID, 2020, so that was actually COVID, they went to the park and they marched from Rouge to the park, and they will do that again. And I know Debbie Dingle and Rashida and others, along with the Downriver organization that Gina also works with and chairs that board. They're going to be marching, and there'll be additional information in the Telegram News as well as River Rouge's website and all.
Well,
So-
you know, and I do want to thank. I was in a meeting with Sam Stark and Kay Hellinan, and that's one of the things that we with Southeast Michigan Jobs for Justice are also going to be a part, of that,
good,
as well. So it's going to be a great event. It's going to pretty much let a lot of people know about something that happened in our history that we want to make certain that we've learned, and what are the lessons that we've learned. Just like with things that have happened, in previous years, what have we taken from this? What happened with George Floyd?
Right,
What happened
right.
with so many other people that have passed on, and now here you're talking about months later or years later, what has been a result of that? Aside from just showing in a history book that someone was killed,
Right.
but
Out of the ashes.
out of the ashes,
Yes.
there springs hope.
Yeah. And you kind of have a way forward, right? The young people that are dealing with this at the Starbucks, the ones that are kind of apprehensive at Walmart's about unionizing,
About
right?
unionizing,
Becoming partners together as a workforce to get change. So you can see the results, and even more so, you see the whole stream, that whole pathway. It's always going to be met with resistance. There's going to always be someone, when you want health care and educational equality, somebody's going to call you a communist. They've been doing it since they started it. So be bold. Be a Bernie. Okay, so you call me a communist, but we're still going to say feed everybody. Give everybody the right to good food, to good drinking water. These are the things that the union has always fought for. And it's so disenchanting to me to hear the younger people say, I don't want to be a part of what you built, right? Because we have so many young people that think, I don't want to pay union dues. But every time you get sick and you don't have to go to work, that's your union that'll fight for your job.
So that's the importance of union.
Absolutely.
And some of these individuals that are trying to do the union blocking,
Yes.
they should really realize that there's so much that the unions do for fair and equitable wage
Right.
for all people.
Right.
Not just some, but for all people.
Right.
Okay, we've got a couple minutes left. Pastor Overman, just basically let's give some final closing remarks. I just want to make certain too that to recognize you, your church, Christ Temple City of Refuge out in Inkster.
Yes.
And then also what
Operation
you do with
Refuge.
Operation Refuge and the food pantry that you provide to so many individuals out in the Inkster area, as well as throughout the entire community.
Yeah, Operation Refuge, we do quite a bit of work, but the one thing that I really want to talk about and tell everyone is you have an opportunity. Go to our website. We're looking for young people to employ. We have oratorical Black History contests coming up along with the Living Museum, scholarships, and first prize, I believe, is like $500. So check us out on Facebook, Camp Inspire, Operation Refuge, and of course, Mother's Pantry. We've been doing food for the last 20 years. We are client choice. Pre-COVID, of course, that where you come in and you shop like at a Trader Joe's. It is your options to get the food you want. We want you to have dignity and respect. You are valued when you come in. So.
And you also give COVID-19 testing
Yes,
as well
and
as
HIV
provide,
testing.
Right, and testing
Yes, so
for,
check out our website. We do a lot. So
Okay.
OperationRefuge.org.
give the location real quick because we've got 20 seconds. Give the location again.
27717 Carlisle and Inkster, and it actually says Mother's Pantry on the building. The church is next door, Christ Temple City of Refuge, where our senior pastor is Pastor Mac A. Hall Jr. So
Well,
did I get it in 20 seconds?
I think you did. Well,
Okay.
thank you, Pastor Velma Jean Overman of Christ Temple City of Refuge, as well as of Operation Refuge.
Yes.
And we just want to thank everyone for tuning in today. If you'd like to advertise in the Detroit Native Sun newspaper, you can contact Ms. Valerie Lockhart at area code 313-457-5944. And you can pick up a copy of the Detroit Native Sun newspaper in a variety of different places throughout the metropolitan Detroit area. Thank you again. Stay safe and contact and reach out to the strong people, because you never know what somebody may be going through today, tomorrow, and so on. So reach out to somebody because you won't regret it. Thank you and have a very, very peaceful and blessed remaining of the day.